would like to call tonight's regular meeting of Los Altos School District Board of Trustees to order. A recording and or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. If technical difficulties occur or persist, the meeting will continue without broadcasting. I will now take roll. Brian?
Present.
Stella? Here. Jim?
Here.
Vladimir?
Here.
And I, Shelley Sarkisian, here as well. I understand Covington students are going to lead us in the pledge.
Ro, you want to start us?
Yeah,
face the flag.
Face the flag, put your right hand over your heart and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to agenda approval. Would any board members like to provide comment on tonight's agenda? Well, I would actually like to provide comment. Item 8, which is the delegate assembly election. I know that we have the ballots here, but the Santa Clara County School Board Association is holding sort of a delegate forum where you could hear statements by each of the candidates on February 17th. So my question is, would you like to pull this from tonight's agenda and we can come back to it at our meeting at the beginning of March?
Point of clarification, when's the deadline to submit our ballot?
So if we meet at our March meeting, we can make our deadline. What was the deadline? It's after our first meeting.
Yes. I would be fine with it. Yeah, postponing it to a future meeting.
Okay.
Sure.
So, may I have a motion to approve the agenda with item 8 pulled?
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. I'm gonna have a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Stella. Motion to approve tonight's agenda with item 8.
Just for clarification, I8.
I8, sorry.
Yep.
Item I8. Thank you. Pulled for a future meeting was made by Vladimir and seconded by Stella. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you. Closed session report. No action was taken in closed session tonight. Superintendent.
Sorry, we are trying to, the owls are not broadcasting right at the moment. They're all on. Their eyes are not. Maybe.
This one's not blue. I think that one's blue, but this one's not blue.
I don't know what that means. But we don't need like our house.
That's funny. Sorry, folks. We want to be able to.
There's the obvious.
Okay.
Audio recording.
It is.
Yeah, I think it's just recording me, which is terrible. Terrible. Oh, I heard one hoot. Yeah, we should just audio.
Okay, let's keep going then.
Okay. Yes, so yes, thank you. I do have my update to share this evening. Wanted to let you all know that Shelley and I attended the Los Altos Community Coalition last Friday morning and gave an update on our progress around the San Antonio campus. I believe that they record those and they're available if you weren't able to make it, available on their YouTube page. I also wanted to share that we had an induction program review visit last week. Our induction program is our in-house program to support our very new teachers in clearing their preliminary credentials. And so we had a 2-day visit, and we were thrilled that the team that visited will be making a unanimous recommendation for full accreditation to the CTC, which the oversight group, and want to thank Greg Drummond and Sarah Gerlinger, who've really put that program together. We have excellent mentors, and so just a great celebration, which is wonderful. We're happy that we are able to provide an in-house program. We also held 2 information sessions last week for interested board candidates. So Stella and Shally and Jim were able to join Carrie and I, and we had some interested community members come in and learn more about what it might be like to be a trustee, and want to remind the public that our applications are due by February 14th at 4:30 p.m. February 24th, sorry. I have Valentine's Day on my mind, February 24th at 4:30 p.m. And that if anybody in the public has questions, they could certainly reach out to the trustees or me or Marcy, and we get more information to them. We have this Thursday afternoon, our district-wide LASD spelling bee is happening. So the elementary schools have had their local spelling bees. So we have the top folks from each of our elementary schools going to Gardner Bullis this Thursday after school. Wanted to thank Principal Kate Spermerhorn, who's been leading the charge along with the principals at their sites for hosting those folks. And I think there will be an opportunity to celebrate our top 2 who will get to go on to the county spelling bee, which is great. And so if you are available, you're welcome to attend as well. 3:30, I believe it starts up at Gardner. And then just a reminder that our schools are closed all next week. The district office will be open Wednesday through Friday only. Everybody's excited about that.
Thank you. We will have our school presentation, and tonight it's Covington School.
It is.
Good evening. Thank you, Board of Trustees and our Executive Cabinet for having us today. We've done so much work in our district around deeper learning. And we had such a great presentation from GB last month around the work they're doing. And we thought it'd be fun to bring in, like, what does day-to-day work look like when it comes to inquiry-based learning? I will tell you, our kids and our teachers are going to put you to the test.
Oh, no.
We did it last time, remember? You had to be blindfolded and walk around. But I would love to introduce 3 of our amazing staff members. We have Miss here. We have Brittany Axelrod and we have Courtney Mosse. And they're going to go ahead and introduce the experiences you're going to have. Thank you for having us. It's going to be great. All right.
Okay. We'll call it Kevin briefly. Speaking of the spelling bee, we have a few spelling bee contestants in the room tonight.
Me too. Get in there. Yep.
All right, so good evening and thank you for having us. My name is Brittany Axelrod. I'm the resource teacher at Covington.
I'm Courtney Mosse. I teach 5th grade, Covington.
And we're really excited to share a quick look at what writing looks like in our classroom each day. Our students use a daily inquiry approach where they do most of the thinking and work while we guide and support them.
We also use provocations, which are short activities or materials to spark ideas. And students take ownership of their own learning and they explore topics that matter to them. They work with classmates and create meaningful writing based on their own ideas.
Choice and collaboration are key parts of this process, helping students become confident and engaged writers.
And we're going to stop and let our 5th grade students, we have 2 of them here. Please welcome Izzy and Denali. And they're going to share some of the writing experience that we've been doing in our classes.
Hi, I'm Denali. And I'm Isabella. Today we will dive deep into our recent writing experience in Room 23 and what we learned in this unit of our incredible writing, knowledge, and growing our ideas. Our teachers asked us a big question. What do authors want us to understand about the world and how do they show us? At the start of our unit, we first practiced finding themes in 2 books, Milo Imagines the World and A Different Pond. We all chose one of those books and wrote flash drafts, just getting our ideas out on the themes that we found. Our teachers, Miss Maze and Miss Axelrod, led us to figure out how to find themes in books by showing us visuals, including a movie clip from Jurassic Park, where the class worked together. The clip showed a glass of water, and the water inside was shaking. This showed that there was a large dinosaur stomping hard on the ground, which made the water shake. It proved that we can figure out how small things can imply big things, and with the right learning and evidence, it can be very easy to find it. We practice reading closely and paying attention to all the little details authors include, always referring back to our big question. What do authors want us to know about the world? After our flash drafts, our librarian, Miss Starkey, brought in picture books for us to choose from. We each chose a picture book and read it carefully, marking the pages with post-it notes to show reasons and evidence as we went along. Then we got into our groups and shared what we found with our different books. Together, we discovered common themes and figured out the second part of our big question. How do authors show us the theme? After hard work, we all gathered our evidence from across our different books and made visual posters with our group. Allow us to share these posters with you. Feel free to come up to the front to see these posters yourselves.
Or we can yam it.
Or not.
Very stuff. Are we done? There's two pages.
Gonna write it down.
Yeah.
These posters are what we have learned about authors' craft and how authors show us the themes through evidence and deep reasoning. We have had such a great time here. Thank you so much for this great opportunity to share our learning with all of you. Thank you so much for listening to us about our writing experience in room 22.
Did you do that?
So basically, these are the whiteboards that we made. So we each chose the picture books from Miss Starkey, and we split up into groups, and then we all took our picture books, and then we found themes. So basically, this is my group. Number 1 is by Jaina. Her book was called The Moon Moved In, and then this is mine. My book was called Thank You, Mr. Falker, and then the final book was by Amelia. It was called Brave Irene, and we all wrote our traits over here, the ones on the top, and then these draw dots are like evidence of the themes, showing supporting the themes and what they are, and then connections. In all of the books, somebody helped someone else. So we gave examples, and Brave Irene helped her mom and the Duchess. And then another connection is that all books have friendship. And then we kind of just wrote this down, and then this is the techniques, how the authors showed us the themes of the books. I'm gonna invite the 6th graders to come on up and join me. Okay, in case you forgot, my name is Bianca. I'm the resource teacher at Covington. I also teach with
Alyssa Diener. I teach 6th grade at Covington, and these are some of our lovely students. We have Milagros right here, Manal, and Ro.
Go ahead.
We'd like to share what daily inquiry looks like in our classroom as well. We are focused on co-teaching math together.
We also use daily provocations to get our students' minds kind of ready to go for math. They help spark curiosity, conversation, and student thinking.
Rather than starting with answers, we invite our students to explore, question, and build ideas together.
Tonight, our students will lead you through one of their favorite provocations.
And we invite you to learn alongside them. Go ahead, students, ladies, take over.
Hi, my name is Manala.
Hi, my name is Bro.
Hi, my name is Milagros. We're here to tell you what math is. What makes our class different is that we feel like we're actually learning. Our teachers do introduce new topics, but they start to challenge us in later lessons. They make me genuinely think hard and learn more efficiently. In previous grades, I hated math class. I hated learning it until this year. I believe that the reason I hated math was because I felt like we weren't learning. We were just being taught. Our teachers in this class make us go into the pit. We use our brains and work together as peers to solve questions. The difference between learning and being taught is incredibly big. While I was mindlessly consuming information, I felt like I was wasting time. Now in this math class, I feel like math can be fun and realistic. It doesn't have to be boring. It can be a nice challenge. In our classroom, what makes it different is that instead of just rushing to the right answer, we focus on truly learning from the process and deeply understanding the math we're trying to solve. Plus, we feel safe sharing our answers because we know we won't be judged. Everyone in our classroom is here to support and grow together. We printed out some 100 charts to help you guys for the next activity we're gonna do.
My favorite math activity is making our own posters with different people to get ready for the next unit. When we do this activity, we work in groups and talk about what we already know and what we are wondering about. We ask questions, share ideas, and listen to different strategies from our classmates. This helps me understand the new unit before it is even begins and makes learning less confusing. I also like working with different people because we all think in different ways and can help each other. This activity makes math more fun and helps me prepare and feel confident for what we will learn next.
Now we're gonna start doing our like little project. I wasn't expecting those last two things.
You're gonna have to guess how many erasers are in the container. As the clues appears, use the information to narrow the possibilities to a smaller set. After each clue, use the estimation again to determine which of the remaining answers is the most reasonable.
I do encourage all of you in here without 100 charts to play along.
You should, it sounds like. Just saying.
Write down your history. After each clue, you'll see if your estimate is still a possibility. After each clue, if it's no longer possible, write down a new estimate. And be prepared to explain why you chose it. That's the 100.
The answer is an odd number between 30 and 80. Make your first guess.
All the work.
The answer is a multiple of 3.
Make your second guess.
Don't go too fast.
Be more time.
We use this.
You
can
get
write
that
all
right
of
for for you guys, yeah.
Can one of you explain to the board how we use our 100 charts
Well-
over and over again?
For the first clue, it said numbers between 30 and 80, so you can just cross out the numbers that are like orange between those numbers. It says like odd numbers, you can cross out all the even ones, and that will help you find your answer.
Then in the second clue, it said the answer is
Sorry.
So then you cross out all the numbers that are not multiple.
During this process, it's good to help each other, learn together.
Great.
We're not in business.
I'm sure you guys do this much faster than you do.
They are very fast.
They have practice though. And this is just the warm up.
Hey, what's the problem?
You'll find out later. Update your guess. You should be in the second guess right now.
Are we ready to move on?
Yep.
Yes.
If you divided the answer by 5, the remainder would not be 2 or 4. After that, make your third guess.
Think they're ready for the next.
Yep. Report.
The answer does not include the digit 3.
You had it.
Okay, the number guy better get this.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Good someone.
Last clue, last clue.
I think.
The answer does not include the digit 4.
Girls, I think you're ready.
After seeing the clues, you have narrowed the possibilities to a small set of numbers. Before you see the answer, select your final estimate. Write it down and explain to someone why you chose that number.
We'll skip the explaining part, don't worry about that. You were very different, I was prepared to say.
They should help each other like
Can we know how many numbers you have left and what they are?
Oh, I didn't fifty.
I have 51 and 63.
You should only have 2 numbers.
And it doesn't include its 3.
Yeah, I have 51 and 75.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, 75 and 75.
what's your guess?
51.
Okay.
It's also like good to count all of the ones you can see at the surface, you know. Just like make an estimate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, there's a remainder too on that one.
See, learning together.
Dr. Bosco, you still working on it?
Hi, girls, what's our next step? Oh,
Drum roll, please.
the lady.
I know.
This is something we do in our class quite often, and if it's not this type of provocation, we do others. We really want our students at the center of their learning, so this is daily way of getting them started. They can tell you that they are the ones doing almost all of the activities. Not that we aren't, of course, helping them out, but they guide and lead everything in our classroom. And as they said to you earlier, it's been a great experience for them, helping boost up their math confidence and making them feel really good about themselves. So we love bringing these kinds of things, and we're glad that you guys were so enthusiastic to play along with us.
Thank you.
Like a picture.
Really quick, yeah. Just the kids or us too?
Just the kids.
No.
Cut behind.
Oh, the kids, get them tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
The kids. That way.
You guys are in the middle, the star of the shows, the star of the shows. Yeah, you guys did amazing. You're trying to go. Should I go with that? Even it out here.
I think not.
When we're sure again. Going back down. You want me to take a picture of ladies for? Okay, everyone. Go Gauchos.
It's starting to say.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. I'm like excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you to Covington students. Guys do not have to stay for the rest of the.
Perfect, thank you.
Gonna play math tricks.
Bye, thank you. Alrighty, moving on to our consent calendar. Are there any questions from the board on the items on the consent calendar? Okay, are there any requests for?
But
Sorry,
have a question.
yes, please.
What's the different purchase orders, what warrant for? So the purchase, what are warrants? Sure, the purchase order is to, like a promise to pay for a certain item or good or service. Yeah. And then the warrant is after they've done the work, then we're paying. So that's the actual check. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Is there any public comment? Public comment is now closed. Would any board members like to provide further comment on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. Is there a second? I'll second. Thank you, Stella. Motion to approve the consent calendar as presented was made by Vladimir, seconded by Stella. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Employee request to address the board. Los Altos Teachers Association.
Good evening, everybody. Allison White, LATA, and I'm making this statement on behalf of Alex Schroeder, who can't be here tonight. I want to begin by thanking Brian for joining us at the CTA-sponsored board and union member dinner. It was genuinely wonderful getting to know you beyond the boardroom, to connect as people who share a deep commitment to public education. I was particularly struck by about what I learned that evening about the districts surrounding us and the close collaborative relationships their board members maintain with their union leaders. In some cases, those leaders are just a phone call away. I look forward to cultivating a future where Los Altos mirrors that kind of partnership, where regular communication and mutual respect are the foundation of our work together. Bargaining update. Tonight, I want to share an update on two issues that have emerged as priorities in our negotiations and that matter deeply to our members. Issue one, involuntary transfers or reassignments. The first is involuntary transfers or reassignments, situations in which the district moves an educator to a different grade level, site, or assignment without their consent. These are sometimes called administrative transfers. At the bargaining table, LATA has proposed a 3-year waiting period between involuntary transfers or reassignments for the same educator. The district has proposed 2 years. Here's why this matters. When educators have consistency in what they teach and where they teach it, they develop deeper expertise in their content and a more nuanced understanding of their students' developmental needs. They build relationships with families and colleagues and become more skilled. We understand that sometimes reassignments are necessary. However, our experience and research on teacher stability shows us that repeated transfers create real costs. Research demonstrates that high teacher turnover disrupts student learning and lowers student achievement. And one study found that roughly 1/3 of first-year teachers cited involuntary staffing changes as a reason for exit. In our own district's past, we have seen the same educators move repeatedly, a pattern that creates anxiety and instability for both the educator and their students. When we surveyed our members about whether they felt strongly about a 3-year waiting period, 74% indicated that they do. This is a clear message from our members about what matters to them. Staff meeting length. LATA proposes a 60-minute cap on staff meetings held no more than twice monthly. The district has proposed a 75-minute cap. Here's the reality of an educator's day. We prepare before students arrive. We grade, plan, and reflect after they leave. Many of us commute. Our time is finite and valuable. Already 40% of our members are working within this 60-minute structure, and it works. In fact, 78% of our members feel strongly that a 60-minute cap is both reasonable and necessary. Research supports shorter focus meetings. A study from the University of North Carolina found that 30-minute meetings are the ideal length to cover important information without losing audience attention. By capping staff meetings at 60 minutes, the district sends a clear message. We value your time. We respect your outside commitments. We trust that efficiency is possible. And so our ask, both of these issues reflect a single principle: respect for educators' time and professional judgment. These are not frivolous concerns. When we asked our members what matters to them, they spoke clearly. 74% feel strongly about transfer reassignment stability, 78% about meeting time boundaries. I ask that you and district management seriously consider the voice of our members. They are not asking for the extraordinary. They are asking that their time be valued and that their professional environment support both their well-being and their ability to serve students well. We believe these are reasonable requests that ultimately benefit everyone in our district. We look forward to moving these items forward at the bargain. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Allison. From the California School Employees Association, Kim Fletcher.
Hello, good evening. Just gonna talk today about our surveys. Firstly, I actually just want to say that we, I think as staff have recognized that it actually has been really wonderful to have the support of having food for all. While this is a state mandate, we also appreciate that you have showed up with staffing for it. The fact that we have 2 people there who are serving those meals on a daily basis is just wonderful. We have so many of our survey staff who have stayed with us multiple years. They know our students. They really have a first name basis with so many of them that are there on a regular basis and actually really have become a trusted member on campus for them, especially year after year, that it's someone comforting that they get to see when they come back after summer, that even though their teacher is new, that is one more person that they're going to see maybe twice a day who is feeding them and getting them through the school day. And also then there, or sometimes a person is checking them when they see them that they're outside the window. They're making sure that that student has the food that they need to get through the day. A lot of people, when this change happened, I heard from community members thinking, our students don't need that. And we know that our community is very K-shaped and that we have a lot of families who, this is true, they do not need this. But we have families, and you never know which family it is, that this is getting them through either a long, rough time in their life or even just a very short time, that their student will be fed and be able to really learn and be part of the school community fully. And it's just been so wonderful having 2 staff members at every site consistently to support them. They just do such great work in really becoming valuable community members of our school community, and just grateful for the support and just saying that they just really do wonderful work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. To provide public comment on an agenda item, speaker cards are to be submitted to the superintendent. Speaker cards will not be accepted once public comment begins. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. We're going to first start with community comments. This time is reserved for members of the public and employees to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on non-agenda items, except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make a brief comment or ask clarifying questions. And I understand we have one public comment. It just says parent.
Hi, board. I'm a parent in the community, and I'm here to speak on the 10th side. I noticed that it was not on agenda, so it can be talked about. My questions was that with the declining trend of the enrollment roll, LASD hasn't gone to where it has, even with the BCS enrollment. They're just not like, it's such a waste of taxpayer money to invest all the bonds into this 10 site when there's so many more, like the 9 other sites at LASD that still need the money and the funding to build. If you've been to Almond Elementary School, go check it out for yourself and see how it can, need a facelift. So I just urge that the board, I know you guys talked about last meeting, of groundbreaking in like, I'm thinking May, but just if there's a way to figure it out how to spend taxpayer money more, responsibly, so that you don't, work with BCS, so that maybe with, with the new, with like the 2 buildings that is gonna be built offsite anyway for the 10 site, can that be done for the existing location of BCS? Figure out some way to, not waste this money and spend it so that the money goes back into the students. So, and that location is just not really safe. There has been 2 deaths in the last 2 years at that location. Now, if you're thinking of putting 600 or 900 kids in that location, right next to the parking lot, where there has been 2 deaths in the last 10 years, when the schools open up, like it's become available to the public after 4:30, how is that ensuring safety of all the students that you're gonna have there? So just think about student safety, think about fiscal responsibility. So I just want to urge the board to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. Student performance update. Right? Well, if anyone would like to provide public comment on this item, please submit a speaker card now.
Mercy. Hello. Every year, 3 times a year, our students, in addition to the CAPS, which happens once a year, 3 times a year, our students take a reading assessment called DIBELS, which stands for the Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. There'll be a quiz at the end.
Rolls right off the top.
Just rolls right up. We use this assessment for a couple of purposes. One is it acts as a screener for students to identify kids who are at risk for reading difficulty. And another way we use it is to help measure whether we're making progress across the year with students. So tonight, I want to share mainly some data from our most recent DIBELS assessment window. We completed that in January. And I will just go into some questions here. The first is, how are students doing overall? And you can see here that this takes us back to winter 2025. So this was around this time last year in 2025. And these kinder students, you follow them to spring of last school year. And then this is their score. This is their the percentage of students who met or exceeded or were at above just this last window in winter. And so that same trend follows. They were the grade before they are now last year. A couple of things I want to point out about this, and one of the reasons I included last year's scores along with this year's was you see this trend happening. We've seen this year over year as we've been giving the DIBELS that at the beginning of the year, particularly in the primary grades in K and 1, students will see a whole group of students that progress rapidly to the end of the year. So like we would expect that at the beginning of kindergarten, that we don't have as many students who are at or above grade level. But by the end of kindergarten, like was true at the end of last year, that number grew by quite a bit. And the same thing has happened in first grade and second grade, even in the third grade. By the end of the year, they tend to make marked growth. So you can see where we are right now and those numbers compared to last winter, and we're anticipating growth in those numbers. I'm talking a lot about the early literacy numbers because we know that when we are focused on early literacy, those skills just carry with the students for the rest of their career, and we can close the gap when kids are young. That's where the most effort pays off. So compared to last year, just a year over year, we've grown about 2.5%. And there are likely many reasons for this. We think that we have done a remarkable job in the last 4 years of bringing in systems that really boost students' performance in reading. Just using a screener like DIBELS allows us to quickly understand who is at risk and give them both in-class intervention and out of the classroom intervention if that's necessary. Additionally, I've mentioned this before, all of our K2 teachers have now been trained in Orton-Gillingham methods. They understand the science of how kids learn how to read and are able to address head-on challenges that students are facing in phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, all of the things that make up early literacy skills. We have a very consistent sequence of skills. This is something we know about how kids learn how to read, that when phonics skills are taught sequentially and in order, kids are more likely to develop the skills necessary to become a reader, and we have strong interventions in place. One of the questions you had when I was here talking about CASP was, how do our students do who started in LASD? And so I have some numbers for you, both in terms of DIBELS, and I'll go back to CASP since I didn't get that last time I was here. you can see that there's, this shows a small trend. So I pulled kids who started here in TK or K. And just looking at this, last spring's data, you can see there was just a small uptick for kids who started in TK or K and LASD. The numbers look a little bit different when we look at the CASP. This is the last 3 years of CASP. And you can see the trend seems to be that as kids who started in TK, that number looks much higher than kids who started LASD in 3rd grade. And we'll continue to follow this trend over the years. But I think that's an important metric for us to continue to follow. I just happened to come across this data set that I thought was very interesting and worth sharing. This comes from the Navigator Analytics. They published a set of comparative data for school districts. And what it does is it compares school districts to other school districts in the state, to school districts who fit our same profile of having 0 to 10% of our students at an economic disadvantage, compared to school districts in Santa Clara County and in the region. And some of the things I'll point out from this data are that overall, Los Altos is ranked 10th among the 955 school districts for ELA. Among schools that are similar to us, as far as economic disadvantage, we're ranked 9th out of 27 schools. In Santa Clara County, 2nd out of 31 schools, and in Region 5, 2nd out of 66 schools. I'm not going to read every single number on here, but some I wanted to point out because we've been drawing a lot of attention to what is going on for our Hispanic students and our students at an economic disadvantage. I do want to point out what we're seeing here compared to 893 districts in the state, we're 83rd. This really confirms what we had suspected, that this is an continued area of working growth for us. We don't feel satisfied that we're 22nd out of 25 districts in the county. Similar profile districts in the state, even though our numbers within the county look better. For students at an economic disadvantage, you'll see we're ranked 109 out of 929. For similar school districts, socioeconomically, 15 out of 23, and so on. One of the reasons I wanted to share this with you is because we know that in California, there is a reading crisis happening. And it is particularly with our low-income Hispanic students. Around 74% of low-income Hispanic 3rd graders read below grade level. And it's alarming. You're going to see, I'm going to show you how we're doing based on our DIBELS assessment next. We're doing better than that, but we're not doing enough. And we know this is a call to action. It's both here we're putting this in context, and we also know that this work is critical, that it's a systems issue, not just in LASD, but across the state, and we have a responsibility to be part of the change. The California Reading Coalition, I might say this wrong now that I started saying it, I'm regretting it, but tell me if I'm wrong. There's only one school district in the state where low-income Hispanic students, more than 50% of students are reading at or above grade level. Did I get that right? Good. Thank you. So it's a problem we need to address with everywhere, and it can start right here for us. Here's how we're doing, and I'm going to point out there were 61 students assessed in winter of 2025 who are low-income Hispanic students. And in winter of 26, we assessed 65 students. We see a great deal of growth here, but I think it's very important to note that this cohort of students is so small, and we lose a chunk of them every year, we will likely see this number go like this, and where we really need to do the work is with individual students at that level to understand what's happening for them, in terms of where their skills are, where they need to grow next, what's happening at home, what other needs need to be met outside of their academic needs at school. We need to provide that sort of attention to really understand the issues that are impacting the students who are at risk in our schools. We do have systems set up for success, and we continue to build on them. I've talked about the supports that we have now in place for every kinder through second grader. That is our MPSS system that's been improving, our multi-tiered system of support. In certain classrooms, we've increased aid time. We are assembling a watch list to really drill down and understand the needs of each one of those students, understand what interventions they've been given over time. These exist at schools, but centrally, we will hold this and be able to monitor that progress. There are equity walks happening at our school where teams of teachers and administrators are going into classrooms to see how students are engaged. Our students who are most at risk, what does their engagement look like in the classroom? And we've just started, one of our retired teachers and a small army of volunteers have started a parent education network. You may have seen that advertised in school newsletters. There's both an English version and an in-person Spanish session, and that community, I understand, is growing right now. They're on their third session and focusing on reading, and the next step there is to work on how we are ensuring that books are being taken home every day for students who parents are attending that group. And it's so far we're very hopeful that this is going to make a difference for our families. One of my favorite things that I've heard today at this board meeting was the student up here who said, our teacher taught, but we didn't learn. And when we're talking, you've heard me talk about deeper learning and LASD student experience, and this is the heart of it, that only the student learns. And when we give kids experiences that put them at the center of the learning, that require them to do the thinking, they will do the thinking and they will learn. One of the most important things for us to remember about our students who are still learning to read at higher grades is that they are capable of deep thinking in the classroom, and they are capable of engaging and being part of a rich conversation. And that is the heart of what we believe about kids. And so when we talk about this being for all kids, not just for the kids who are ready to become more creative and communicate better and collaborate, all kids are ready for that. And it's what we believe is really going to continue to move things along for them. You may have lots of questions, and I will try to answer them today or in the future.
Thank you, Bill. Are there any clarifying questions? Actually, I have. Okay.
Well, I was just gonna ask if the difference assessment is the same in the winter and the spring, or if it changes.
The expectation
It
changes.
does change. Okay.
Yeah,
And the assessment is different for first grade than it would be.
right.
So
Right,
that
so you
grade
see
grade
that
one.
jump into
Yeah.
first grade, and kids who were like, we had like 90+% proficiency, and then all of a sudden it's, I forget what it was, like 80, something like that.
But can you tell me, what was the name of the district that you said was successful?
They did not give the name of the district. I can go back and look at the website and see if I can find it, but I don't recall the name. Do you recall the name? I think it's Bonita.
Bonita.
Bonita?
Yes.
No. Is there any public comment? Okay, any further discussion from board members? Oh, it's please.
I was just curious, how the attendance has been at the parent education session.
So they completed session 2. Our online community is very, very small right now. That's our English speaking group. And our Spanish speaking in-person group, I just talked with Kathy Daybob, who's a retired teacher who's running it. They had 8 families in attendance last time, and they're hoping to build the community from here.
And you with both parents coming.
And Pat Broadkey has been an important part of it.
But several of the families, both parents came, which surprised us. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. But going back to Stella's question about tests. How does Dibbles compare, let's say, first grade to second grade? If you go back to
Yeah.
the first, one of the first slides.
Probably this one.
So, kindergarten, we looked at them twice during the year, then they took the first grade test. How does Dibbles compare that test with the previous year?
So at the end of kindergarten, last year, we had 87.8% of students at or above grade level. That same cohort this year at the start of the year, I don't have on here, but you can see, so there was the spring window and then there was fall. And I can pull that for you so you can see, but just in our last winter one, just a month ago, that same group who had 87.8 at the end of last year are now at 84.8 because they're working on a first grade expectation now, where it was kindergarten before. And we see this trend at the beginning of the year, they'll be in the 70s. We see this in kindergarten especially, and by the end of the year, they've risen to that challenge. So the expectation changes as they get older.
Okay, that's fine. I guess my question is, if I can find a better way of saying it. The 84.8% of kindergartners at or above in the first grade. Is that number higher or lower than what Dibbles expects them to be, given that they are 87.8% in the previous year? I'm looking at this.
So this means that 84.8% of students just in January were at or above Dibble's expectation. Am I missing the question still?
So they go from kindergarten to first grade. And the test changes. It's a different test.
It's mostly the same test. However, the expectations change.
If it's mostly the same test, that answers the question I have.
So there are individual 1-minute measures where they're testing phonological awareness, letter recognition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're looking for speed and accuracy. And so the expectation as you move from kindergarten to first grade is you become faster and more accurate.
Okay. Yes, all of these are averages. And that doesn't tell us about the two ends of the score spectrum there. And that also has to do with another question, which has to do with how do our different schools compare to the average here?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're different. For some schools that are in the 90s, and some schools are less than that. What are we doing differently for those schools as opposed to the 90 schools that? So I guess the distribution is important.
It is important, but we typically bring district data here, and then our principals work with the data at their sites. And you know, we're trying to understand of course, the differences and what's going on across our schools and how we can best support principals in the work they're doing with individual kids. You know, like I was talking about, we have a small enough number of kids who are needing intensive support that we really believe that we can give, and our schools do give very personalized support
What is
to
it?
students. We see progress for students who have been in intervention for some time. We also have cases where students have been in intervention for a long time and haven't made progress. So we need to bring them back to the team and talk about what it is for the student. If this is intervention isn't working, what are we trying next? What's the thing that we need to do? So we're keeping track of that stuff in a different way, and the individual school teams look really closely at it.
Um. So you mentioned that 74% of Latino low income students score below below expectations.
Yeah, this was the California Reading Coalition put up this information.
We have some number that's equivalent to that 74%. And my personal recollection is that we've seen similar numbers year after year.
Mhm.
And there's distressing. So, and, do we have a goal for, I don't know what our number is, our equivalent of 74%, what's our number?
Well, they're third graders. So you can look at with third graders, we're at last year we had 81% on CAS. I can't remember off the top of my head what the overall was similar to that. I think it was like 80.
But I think he's asking about
That
low income Hispanic students.
Yeah, low income, Hispanic, the very first, go back one slide. Very first bullet there says, 74% of low income Hispanic third graders read below grade level. So we have some equivalent number.
We do. And this is based on the Smarter Balanced assessment. So I don't have that data in this presentation, but I can.
Do we have a goal? What is our number? You're not telling now. But do we have an explicit goal for addressing that issue?
I believe we do. It's in our LCAP. Is that true, Gary? Not the third, but overall, yeah, we do. We can get that exact number too. I don't know that.
And my last question is, we're talking about, low income Hispanic students with Spanish at home. Have we considered Spanish immersion classes that would get over at least initially, get over the language barrier? It'd be helpful, I don't know.
Right now, I don't believe we're considering a Spanish immersion option.
Yeah, I don't think so either. My question is, why not?
Should we?
Yes, should we? Exactly.
Great question.
Okay, that's it.
I just have one quick question. So we do dibbles in fall, winter, and spring.
Correct.
So I'm just wondering for the all students as they progress. So we're seeing what we expect winter to winter. Are we seeing what I know it's not in here, and that's fine, but do we see what we expect spring to fall?
Well, spring to fall is a bit of a hard measure because we see a drop, and we've been doing it I could go back and look and see what the trend is from spring to fall. Well, what we've noticed is the trend from fall to spring, especially in primary grades. We've seen this number go up into the 90s by spring. You can see like all the way maybe almost 90, but up through third grade, we're either above or at 90.
Which is really what we're looking for, that we want by the end of any particular grade level, we want 100% of students to be at or above.
We expect them not to be before that. By the end of the year, we expect them to be that's where we want to see the 100%. And so what we have right now is last year's end of year. This is what it looked like. And this year's middle of the year. So
right. But at the beginning of the year, whatever we saw in results would be normally expected.
They'd be what? Sorry.
Normally expected.
Yeah.
There would be a drop.
Yes, we
percentage
expect
or-
there's going to be,
Okay,
they're gonna
alright,
start below the
Right.
end of
okay,
year threshold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stella and Brian? I just had a question. I know that we do our summer program where we work intensively with kids. Are you looking at the same sort of data, but just with that subset?
For our summer. Currently our summer program, though, for the last how many years? 2, 3?
3 years is really.
2 or 3 years, we've run a summer program through our extended learning opportunities program providers. And they have both a recreational and academic program with them. And I don't have at the ready data for it, but I'll happy to check with those programs and see what we can find.
I'm just curious about the summer learning loss.
Mhm.
And I thought maybe that whatever academic stuff they can do would support them.
I think in the past, we had a challenge, if you might remember, we used to do progress monitoring for the, whatever it was, 19 days. And it's such a short window to really get to see progress, that perhaps looking at those students and are they hitting their spring?
And which one attend?
Yeah, yes.
That's what I did.
Attendance, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Greg. No other questions? All right, excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Yeah, local control and accountability plan mid-year update. If anyone would like to provide public comment on this agenda item, please submit the speaker card now.
Good evening. I have the pleasure of bringing forward tonight's local control accountability plan mid-year report. I'm going to stay seated because I have several documents I'm going to review with you. We're not going to project because they're small little charts, but I will talk it through. So the first document attached to your materials is the update itself. And that's the plan. It's the 29-page mid-year report. It goes with the 84-page LCAT. So I just wanted to highlight that you have the mid-year report in your attachments.
Oh,
your agenda.
okay, sorry.
You also would have the executive summary in your attachments.
Okay.
And then for hard copy tonight, we just put this together so it's available for the public as well. With a chart that will help us review. Just as a reminder that LCAP is a mandated 3-year plan from the state. We update it annually. We actually update it twice per year, once for mid-year and once at end of year. We are currently in year 2 of our 3-year plan. Our 3-year plan runs from 2024 to 2027. And we're required to address all of the 8 state priorities. And so this evening, I'm happy to report that we have completed in terms of meeting our objectives or in progress of meeting all of the objectives that we've set in our LCAP. There's 4 goal areas, and we're going to spend the most time on goal 1, which is the student-facing goal or student metrics. Goal 2 is our metrics about our educators. Goal 3 are parents, and then goal 4 is facilities and finance. The update covers all 4 of those areas. And just as a reminder, back in the spring of 2024, when we developed this LCAP, we held over 250 individual input sessions with community members, parents, students even. We went to a variety of different committees, the ERC, the Curriculum Council, the Wellness Committee, the PLAC, ETA Executive Board. We also had 5th, 6th, and 7th and 8th graders all weigh in and provide input on top of doing surveys of all parents and all teachers and staff. Last year, we added in-person input sessions at our staff meetings, at our association's request. So tonight's update is what we're calling our mid-year 2 update of that 3-year plan. So when I'm talking about targets, I'm actually talking about targets for 2026, 2027 school year as year 3. How are we doing here in the middle of year 2 against that 3-year plan? And so as we talk about the student achievement one, I wanted to just bring the attention to the colored charts. I think that one will give us some nice examples of bringing this to life. In a nutshell, in goal 1, again, our goal about students, there are 46 metrics in here. 35 of those metrics we are meeting or have met for that end of year 3-year goal. And so we need to stay on target with those and continue meeting those. I can talk about a few of them now. 6, we are not yet meeting. We're still have some work to do to hit that 3-year goal. And then 5 of them, the data is just not available yet. The data will be available in the spring. So just give you some sampling. If you could look at the number on the left in the chart, we're gonna look at our 1.3 from E. That's the percent of long-term English learners. And I think Greg was just starting to talk a little bit about this as we think about supporting students. And these are students who have been identified as a long-term EL or needing support longer than they should. We set a target for year 3 that we would have no more than 4% of our student population identified as a LTEL or a long-term EL. As of this report, only 2.5% of our students have been determined LTELs. But you can see that baseline data at 6%. So we've been moving that needle down, and so some of these are ups and some of these are down. So I'm trying to point that out to you. We want to go down in this category. And so we've met that goal for now. We're 1.5% better than the target. However, that next target, you can see it went green, blue, orange. So like Greg was saying, some of those ups and downs with that group, that's the percent of English learners who've made progress towards English proficiency. We've got a target of 65%, and we're currently at 61%. So in order to meet that metric in year 3, we have at least 4% we need to do in terms of improvement. You can see in 1.3 that's the percent of English learners who are at risk for becoming a long-term EL. This number is very important for us as well. And you can see we've cut that almost in half between our baseline year at 12% at-risk students to 6.7% of our students currently who are at risk of becoming LTEL. We're not yet hitting that mark. We're currently 1.7% from target. We are on track. Then just to get down into the CASP data, when you look at the academic performance for ELA and for math, this is all based on our CASP data. What you want to see here is blue. When they're color coded, that's the best that you can do. It's a range of blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. So you can see for all students in ELA, not only are we blue across the board, but we're continuing to improve that number. That's about 2,220 students testing there. And they've gone from 87 points above standard to 94 points above standard. So that's what we want to see, that trajectory to continue to improve. Similarly, across the district, we were talking just a little bit ago with our local assessment around socioeconomically disadvantaged students. We have about 183 of those students testing. They started in their baseline year of 2 points below standard in green, and now they're 15 points above standard in blue. Now, this isn't what we want to see in terms of their overall performance, but it is a growth trajectory that we are looking for. Our metric was we've improved by at least 5 points for one color, and we've improved by 17 points by one, more than one color from the baseline. Just to hit a couple more, you can see our students with disabilities, who did not meet that target yet. Increased by 18 points, but we have improved by one color. We're 23 points from target. That's an area of concern for us. That's true of ELA and math for students with disabilities. And then finally, for English learners, we have about 301 students in that cohort. You can see they started off on the baseline year at 2 points above standard in yellow. And they're now at 19 points above standard in blue. So an overall improvement of 17 points in 2 colors from baseline. A very similar story. We look at math. I won't go line by line. Just wanted to give an example. But math shows up very similarly for the different groups in the progress. And then, you know, that Ms. White was talking about the expediency of a meeting, so I won't go line by line on these pages, but I will just share when you look at the red down the left, those are around chronic absenteeism. So the number of days students are absent from school, as well as our suspension data. Any subgroup or any school that was in the red must be listed in our year 1 LCAT. So there's individual school data for some of these subgroups. You can see they're all progressing quite nicely. You can just look at that grid when they're going from red to yellow to orange to green to blue. And then the comments on the right kind of capture that improvement with yeses all the way down. That's improving that data. It's just where kids are at school, that we're supporting probably simply. Also to note, like beyond attendance and suspension data, we also have our social emotional learning survey in there. We do not yet have spring data available, but that's a TSC survey about how students are feeling about their experience at school. Our target is those scores will increase by 10%. They're already very, very high. And then there's a small paragraph about the local reading assessment data. Greg just reviewed with you. So the local reading assessment data making tonight, the local measurement, the LCAP captures a lot of state metrics that are on our dashboard. Our school accountability report cards, our SARCs, which came at our last meeting, cover the school specific areas of improvement. And so it feels like we have a lot of work to do, certainly, but we're also making some really nice progress. And so in your executive summary, it's slightly different. These are the actions. We just spent some time on the metrics. They're the actions that we're taking in each of the different areas. And we have expenditures tracked directly towards each action. And so I want to thank the business office for all of their work on this. We noticed you were missing a page in the online posted document. So there is one at your table and also available for the public on the overall summary of the budget with a template issue. They prepared that for us during the Super Bowl. So thank you, Eric. That was missing. But we're both happy to take any questions that you might have and for your time reading.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions? Or go to public comment?
I ask a quick clarifying question. About the colors. If I remember properly, the colors are sort of a mix of rate and change. So it's want to sort of, I think I'm seeing it correctly. There's a few of the metrics in here where sort of the number got a little worse, but the color went from red to orange because it got not very much worse. So just something to keep in mind. I mean, the goals sort of are what they are at this point, but that's one of the, seems like a tricky thing with having goals around color improvement because the color shifts are sort of very path dependent as opposed to metrics.
The ELA students with disabilities is a really good example of that. I noticed that too, so they're 10 points below standard.
Right.
So they were orange, but they're 28 points below standard now, so they're yellow. But it's,
right, because it got worse and then better again.
yeah.
But
yeah.
So yeah.
But it's still, so I put note that we didn't need it there, even though it met that color change.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The color change for that. We mentioned.
Right. I have faith that we'll sort of look at it thoughtfully as opposed to just. Thank you.
Any requests for public comment? Public comment is now closed. Any further comments, discussion?
Well, I just wanted to thank Carrie for preparing this chart. It was very helpful and you highlighted a lot of the same things that I wanted to point out myself. And one other thing that I just thought of because Shelley had asked Greg about ELA is that you'll see that the participation has slightly increased. And, you know, if we are able to boost that participation anymore, I wonder if we might see also some improvement in the ELA performance.
Very good point, yeah. Oh, people, how many actually come? Any? Was there? Great, thank you, Carrie. This was tremendous work. I really appreciate you going through it line by line with us. All right. Preliminary middle school facility study.
All right, I'm gonna start and then I'm gonna hand it off to Eric.
Let's call for public comment. Do you want your cards now? Thank you.
So tonight we're here to talk a little bit about background, process, scenarios. I think it would be helpful. We've been talking about this for, well, as long as I've been in the district, but and longer, I recently learned, but just to keep in the public why the district is interested in moving to a middle school model. Just this idea that for me, it was really apparent with our 5th and 6th grade students who were presenting tonight. 6th graders can really benefit from a space for early adolescence where they have social opportunities, emotional support, the great academics, and opportunities for independence. Yes, we can provide that in 6th grade, but it's really on a different level when you see them with their more like age peers on a 6-8 campus. We also know that they're programmatically, that there will be so many great benefits. You know, we've tried to, over the years, kind of give them a forced elective. They have a little bit of PE, but to have some exploratory or choice electives available to them in a middle school and PE daily or following a block schedule, whatever it might look like. Just really great program improvement. When we first started talking about middle school as an option, our 6th grade program looked really different. Every school had 3 or 4 teachers. They were kind of specialists and worked a lot of collaborative problem solving and projects amongst a team of teachers across the board, except for 6th grade at Covington here. Across the board, we're down to 2 teachers. You know, we have not even 60 kids, I don't believe, at any of our schools. Those kids have been with those same small group of kids for a really long time. And this idea of creating a village for students to transition, I want to be clear with the public that, you know, it's not just creating a 7th grade program for 6th graders, but really creating a transition program that eases kids in. It takes the best of that relational part of what happens at elementary school and the programmatic and independent part that's so great at junior high school. We want to keep that front and center in mind for our kids, why we're even talking about middle school. I did ask today Mr. Drummond to come and do kind of an update for the March 2nd meeting. We've had a team of staff meeting talking about middle school and what have you. So I think it would be a great time kind of mid-year to talk about the progress that they've made and then how we're going to engage students and parents as we move through moving to middle school. But tonight, we're really here to talk about specifically about facilities. Back in October, we got some direction from the board to look at middle school facilities. What will it take at Block and Egan for us to house our 6th graders as part of the program? Knowing that also we got direction that we should be preparing that San Antonio campus for plus or minus 600 students, specifically to start with the charter school students there upon the campus opening in 2028. We know that part of the charge was to consider where can we place the remaining LASD resident students who are currently attending the charter school. So they have, we'll talk about numbers more than just resident students attending the charter school. So our focus is around accommodating students beyond the San Antonio campus. We wanted to remind you that our current agreement with the charter school expires in June of 2027, and that our current third graders will be the first 6th grade class who would transition to middle school if all of the stars align and that campus opens in 2028. So I'm going to pass this down to Eric, who's going to talk about our work with architects.
Thank you. Yeah, so back in October, we had a contract and we signed a contract with ADIS Architects, who's in our pool of architects, And we asked them to kind of, hey, let's take a look at both Egan and Block. And from direction from in October is looking at what will it take to have the campus ready for our sixth graders in the fall of 28. But then also look at what is the best location to place the remaining students for BCS, give or take 600 at the San Antonio. So they walked both the campuses. We spent several hours at each campus. We walked in every single room. We looked at the square footages, how is the campus being utilized for students for regular core classes, electives, PE, and so on. Looked at the capacity, the age, and the condition of the existing portables. We looked at the total campus size, square footage. We looked at the acreage because each campus is a little bit different. And then we also, tonight we'll talk about some of the scenarios for consideration, providing some options and flexibility for placement of the Bulls Charter School. So a couple scenarios, and always everybody just, oh, Eric, you're the budget guy. Yes, cost effectiveness is really a priority for sure for the district. And the reason is it will save bond money for modernization for the rest of our campuses. The BCS programs, that Block and Egan and where they're located. And then also allow for the middle school to be ready for the fall of 28. While all these things are going on at the San Antonio campus, we're also going to be working in the background to get our middle schools ready to receive those sixth graders. And then we also want to reduce the annual portable rental cost to LASD. We have a lot of portables, many of them are aging. Some of them will highlight are 20 plus years old. They need to be removed. Their portables shouldn't be around that long. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then one of the slides will really talk about improving traffic and safety. Having 10 schools on 9 sites just has not been working. And so we want to kind of talk a little bit about that. So I want to highlight some of the enrollment numbers from year to year. So last year's enrollment of Bulls Charter School was 898 kids that were residents that lived in our community. This year, 910, slight change. But I wanted to point out the biggest change is from out of district students, 96 from last year, 173 this year. So that's a 17% amount of kids are coming from outside the district. So that means they live in another district, some are far away. Some of these kids are traveling from very far away, and that's an impact on our operations. It's impact on our budget, impact on our facilities that our local community is really paying that bill for those kids that are coming really from out there. It's not serving LSD kids. Our inland transfer from year to year is 10.1. Right now at first interim, we're projecting 11.5 million transfer out. And then the parcel tax sharing is consistent, that's at a capped amount. So the enrollment of Bulls Charter School, it has a direct impact on our facilities as well. Traffic impact, as I mentioned earlier, there are 10 schools on 9 sites. This is the most recent traffic calming that's been done in front of Block Middle School. And on Covington Road, you can see the city had to install the traffic calming devices. They call it a road diet. They're actually shrinking the road, making it more bright bike friendly. But then also the stop sign. If you've been around Covington and drive down Covington during Block morning drop off with the charter school and with Block, it's not a good place to be. I avoid it. I go different directions. But traffic is impacted at both schools, at Egan and Block. So really the traffic impact of trying to have these 10 schools on 9 sites is not really good for our community. BCS aging portables, and these are the ones that Block. These were installed, some of them 10 to 15 years ago. They've got, you can see there's a plethora of portables there. And you can see the average age is between 10 to 12 years old. Some of them are a little bit older, some of them are a little newer. And some of the portables, they might have been manufactured in a certain year, but then installed in different years. So sometimes the year of the portable doesn't always really align with the actual age. But this is how these portables have been at this campus at Block. And this is kind of their footprint over at Block Middle School. The facility impact, it's hard to see on the slide. I try to show in yellow where the impact is for their actual facilities. And then in red, we'll have to make a little bit a different color next time, maybe purple. But you can see the yellow, and there's 2 classrooms that I kind of want to point out if I can. let's think of this complete. Is, inside, next to the library, there's a classroom that's being utilized for Bullis Charter Schools Library. And there's a classroom in the G building that's also utilized. So the footprint at Block, they're in this big section of portables in yellow. And then there's also facilities are also impacted and shared, and that's in red. All the field space, outdoor learning areas, blacktop areas. There's a small footprint. They sometimes use the choir breakout room that's in the music building. So there's a lot of shared spaces. The tennis courts are also shared as well for PE classes. So it has a tremendous impact on the operations of a Block to run a regular campus model there. Block by the numbers, we have about 22 rented portables. And that includes some like bathroom buildings and surgeries and stuff. The average rentals for this is about 288,000 just at Block only. The current Block enrollment is 424, and then the projected enrollment based on this year's third graders matriculating up, and then adding extra students, it would be about 594 in the fall of 28. And looking at the capacity, we're going to need about 6 extra classrooms loaded at roughly 25 to 27 to 1. So that's the extra classrooms that are going to be needed to move the 6th graders to Block in fall 28. Facility impact at Egan, it's much greater. As you can see, the large areas in the yellow. You can see the huge impact along San Antonio Road of all the portable buildings. And then it's called their Fab Lab, and they have Spanish classrooms up between the NPR and the city gym. And then they have another older classrooms with some of their older grades that's on the lower left. And then in red, in the diagonal arc red, the basketball courts, the fields, a huge impact on the outdoor facilities. The site's very constrained because there's such a large footprint that's being taken over. And it's impacting really traffic as well. There's certain areas of part of town as you drive through campus where not to go. Along this street on Portola is not the greatest place in the morning. It's very impactful. It's just not a good model to have all these kids on one small campus. Egan by the numbers, the number of rented portables is much higher, it's 53. The annual cost is 691,000. The current enrollment is 444 students, and then adding the current third graders as they matriculate up, be 614 students, and the number of classrooms needed is about 6 as well. So that's kind of Egan by the numbers. Some aging portables, and this is really where some of these portables were used during modernization 25 plus years ago. They called it the camp school. As some of our LASD elementary schools were being modernized, they would come here, be in these temporary portables, and then as their school was finished modernizing, they'd go back to their school. Some of these portables are 25 plus years old. They're not great condition, really not a good learning environment for anyone. And portables are really meant to be temporary, 10 years or less. Some of them have been there for 25 plus years. So non-ideal situation. The newest portables are on the bottom left. And some of those are only 6 to 7 years old. The block configuration, and this is the one that we've kind of like analyzed and looked at, is grades 6 through 8. And if you look at this map, the idea would create, as Sandra mentioned, I really like the term of village. It's getting them ready to go into 7th and 8th grade. They're going to have their own portables that'll be dedicated to their classes. And they're going to call that the 6th grade village. And then the stuff that's highlighted in the darker, kind of a purplish color, that's going to be removed and demolished. There are some classrooms in rooms 11 and 12, hard to see on this map, but in the board packet, you can see it a little bit more clear. There's some classrooms called rooms 11 and 12. Those classrooms right now are for their TK and K. The district can, in the past, Stepping Stones preschool is there. There will be an opportunity for the district to look at child care provider to provide maybe a couple small classrooms for them, because there's a playground there as well. It'd be very difficult to integrate get our 6th graders on this campus at the same time. It's a little impacted there. So we feel this is an interesting layout. We like having the 6th graders in their own row of portables, They're still part of the block campus, still part of the whole school climate and culture, but then they have their little core classes able to be with their core teachers. So we thought this was a nice layout by the architects. It has some good advantages as well. There's going to be some removal costs associated with doing this, but nothing that the district can't make part of our bond program. And really, we're kind of planning on budgeting for some portable removals and replacements. The campus feasibility, the block campus is smaller, and 3 acres. If you have a big out in the forest, it doesn't seem like much, but on a school site, 3 acres is a significant difference in size. It's 3 acres smaller than Egan. Many years ago, there are different layers of portables at block. Some of them are on built-up foundations, and the reason for that is DSA. As you know, there's a creek and kind of I guess you could say a drainage ditch or something like that. But it's really the city kind of drainage for the stormwater, and that's a floodplain. So the Division of State Architect forced the district probably over 10 years ago to build up large concrete foundations. Very expensive to do that, but we really can't add more buildings there without significant cost. So using the current layout is really best for our 6th graders. It's really not feasible to have our 6th graders sharing the same row of portables in the same. Usually there's a lot of segregation where BCS is on one section of the campus and Block or Egan on different sections. So it's really not feasible or not a great idea to be mixing the 2 schools. And then there's also from the San Antonio campus, Block is the furthest. And so if you have some family that goes to charter school and they have kids in different grade levels, it's really much better for traffic. San Antonio Road, El Camino Real, Springer, Miramonte, much larger streets that can handle traffic. You just saw the previous slide about the impact of traffic on Covington. Covington is not made to have that many kids on it. St. Francis has Cuesta and Miramonte, bigger, larger streets. Covington is a much smaller street. And then also traffic congestion relief. Having Block really lower the number of students there, we think that will have a significant impact on traffic, and that's good for our neighbors that live around the Block area and Loyola and other kids that feed into the Block campus. So then we asked the architects, so as you're thinking about these different scenarios, really look at the scenario 1 for Egan, and that's really creating the 6th grade village. You can see it in yellow. In the bottom left, that would be the 6th grade village for the students at Egan. And then we would demolish and remove some of the portables highlighted in yellow. We'd move those out. We would reuse the current rooms that are already DSA approved. There'd be no changes to the district, minimal impact. And then we would have to have some options of scenario 1 is looking at which portables do we remove? Do we keep some of the older ones? Do we move portables around? And that's going to be a decision as we further study this a little bit more.
Eric?
Yes.
Where is the yellow there?
It's green, that's, yeah.
Well, or is it green?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so right there, this little here, this is where the 6th grade village would be. These portables here, we would remove out. And that would create more blacktop space. Right now, it's really not great. The tennis courts at Egan cannot even be used because there have been portables placed over them. And then this would free up this area. We potentially would remove some of these classrooms here, and then we have to decide which ones are going to repurpose or replenish.
Right in the key,
Yes.
the key at the bottom, the existing, the yellow or green one.
Yeah.
Existing Bullis class repurposed for Block. You mean Egan?
Yeah, that should say Egan.
Yeah, that's just a typo. That should just say Egan.
Very hard to line.
Yeah, right there. That should just say Egan. It's just a typo. Then scenario 1A through 1C, it's using the same concept of where the 6th graders for LASD would go, but then looking at what's the best reconfiguration of these portables. Some of the portables that are up here in this upper right-hand corner where they have some of their TK and K classes, are some of the oldest portables in the district. So the idea would be, do we maybe move some of those students back in this section where these portables are a little bit newer? There is a playground out here for their students. So there's different options and configurations, but we also want to be mindful of the number of kids it serves. So one of the options was this scenario, option 1A is we'll be able to fit in about 350 kids. So if we get 600 plus kids at the San Antonio campus, we can really fit the rest of the LASD BCS students in this scenario. And then if there's more out of district students, it could go in this scenario. And if they go at the current amount, about 1095, at their current enrollment, it'd be this scenario. One of the things to point out is the district is really only obligated to provide facilities for current resident students. So if the charter school has more out of district students that are coming from outside, then the charter school would be responsible for these facilities, and that would be on their dime. So these are some options, and we're still at a very high level. And that's what we kind of ask the architects to do, is provide the board high level overview and study, and then come back to you to really ask any other question you have. And so that's kind of where we're at tonight, is some direction. The next steps is we're asking the board to provide some direction to staff. Any additional information that you need to proceed, we'll continue working collaboratively with both charter school on discussions. And then we want to finalize the timeline budget for middle school model. And our San Antonio campus is progressing nicely for design, and we've had weekly meetings with the design team. I think we're on track for fall of 28 opening, and then we would have the same type of opening for the middle school at the same time. So tonight we're here to really, this is the first time we've really gone over this. So that's why we call it preliminary study. And then we'll ask for some direction on next steps, and then also what questions you have or other things you might need us to bring back for further action.
Thank you, Eric. That's tremendous amount of work. Do we have any clarifying questions before I go to public comment? Brian?
I seem to remember in previous presentations about sixth grade, adding sixth grade to Block and Egan, that we would need additional locker rooms for PE. So is that still the case? Because this only talks about 6 additional classrooms.
Correct. We did look at the existing locker rooms, and we do know that not all sixth graders will be in PE at the same time. So we feel like, as classes rotate, that if there's only going to be 170 kids, we might only need 30 kids maybe at a time, and each period might be taking PE. So from the architect's viewpoint, they didn't think we needed to do a locker room expansion at this time based on the current enrollment.
I think it's not clarifying. I think it's just the question.
Well, let me say public comment and then. Public comment, we have 3 for public comment. Let's give everybody 3 minutes each, Eric. First, we'll start with Pepe Yu, then Sang Peruri, and then parent.
Hello, my name is Pepe and I'm a Los Altos School District parent. And I'm here to support the middle school model. I was really delighted to hear the board wanting to move in this direction, and now we're planning implementation, including facilities planning. I had one child go through LASD, including the junior high at Egan, and it was an amazing experience. I really wish she had had an additional year at Egan. With sixth graders at Egan and Block, they would have access to expanded programming that is age appropriate, like electives and sports. And with sixth graders at Egan and Block, they would also benefit from making new friendships with kids across all different feeder schools. At this age, I think they're ready to make connections based on interests and their maturing personalities, which may not be possible at a smaller elementary school setting. Within months into sixth grade, most of the kids are ready to move on from the smaller world of elementary school to a larger world of junior high, in which they can exercise more independence. And we can see that in their behaviors. So the kids are craving independence, and I think they would get that at Egan and Block. I have heard the district staff talk time and time again about setting up the sixth grade model with the village that would help sixth graders transition into junior high, offering the needed safety nets of elementary school with the age appropriate independence and resources of junior high. I support this model of transitioning our sixth graders to Egan and Block. Thank you for continuing to make this change. And I would ask that we continue to make progress by making the room and facilities needed at Egan and Block to make this happen. So thank you all.
Thank you. Sang Peru.
Hey there, thanks for letting me speak today. My name is Sang Peruri. I'm a Los Altos resident and both of my children went to LASD. After hearing about BCS waitlists for many years, I was startled by today's presentation. I was truly surprised to learn that out-of-district BCS enrollment has grown from 96 to 173 students. For years, Egan and Black students have had to give up space to share facilities with BCS. When BCS primarily served students living within LASD, that arrangement, while not ideal, felt equitable. This is no longer the case, and the current situation directly harms LASD students and teachers. Beyond the loss of space, enrolling out-of-district BCS students imposes a significant financial cost on LASD, costing over $10,000 per student per year, or close to $2 million per year. That is money diverted away from LASD students and puts pressure on LASD salaries. Instead of shortchanging our students and teachers, we should eliminate this unnecessary cost. As the current agreement with BCS comes to an end, I strongly encourage the district to adopt two clear principles in any new agreement. LASD should not enter into any facilities agreement unless BCS fully compensates the district for the full cost of out-of-district students. BCS should also pay for all building, land, and operating costs for out-of-district students. So in those examples, if BCS is on LASD facilities, we should get compensated for the full cost of both the land, the portables, as well as the additional $2 million per year. For these reasons, option 1A clearly is the best choice. It provides capacity for 350 students compared to the 300 in-district BCS students that would need to be sited at the campus. I'm happy to see that none of the scenarios include TK or kinder classrooms and that they are being centralized to the San Antonio campus. However, placing grades 1 through 8 at Egan would still be disruptive for families. A more logical and family-friendly approach would be to cite BCS grades 5 through 8 at Egan, which is easier for older kids to bike, and TK to 4 at San Antonio, where younger kids are more likely to be dropped off. This improves safety by grouping students by age and eliminates unnecessary duplication, such as unnecessary gym lockers across campus. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sang. Parent?
Hi, I'm a parent and I'm here to report some numbers. So while I do agree that it's a good idea for Los Altos to add sixth grade to the middle school because a lot of the middle school around here are doing the same thing. But let me give you some number. In 2015 to 2016, 10 years ago, LSD highest enrollment was at 4638. Currently, this past year, 24 and 25, the enrollment is at 3370. That's a difference of 1,268 students. So based on the presentation that you just showed, if you add sixth grade to Block and Egan, that's only 1,208 students. So you still have 60 room to spare. What I'm trying to tell you is that you do have space. You do not need the 10 site. So I don't understand why you want to spend $155 million on the 10 side would still have issue with, with the TDL agreement of selling back to Mountain View. And then $125 million in construction and design and escalation midpoint. That's only leave $225 million left for, LASD to upgrade all the 9 schools that LASD has. Therefore, it is good that the middle school have 6, 7, and 8, but the middle school, you don't need a new site. You can work with BCS so that everybody can fit in the current site that are currently there. So with 340 students moving from elementary school into the middle school, what's going to happen to the 7 elementary school in LSD? I mean, it does cost money to run the school. So then are you going to keep on, just not being fiscally responsible? And that's what I'm trying to say. So again, please think about this and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public comment is now closed. All right, board discussion. You want to pick this up?
I just had a question. on the little schematics option, particularly at Egan. So scenario one, not the one slide before this. So those little yellow or green buildings there, that's gonna house all the sixth graders.
Correct.
Okay,
So if there's 6 portables here, and each one's loaded at roughly, 25 to 1, 27 to 1, that's 5 to 6 portables that are needed. That will be the 6th grade village right there as part of the campus.
okay.
Remember also that students in a middle school will be out
Right,
into
sure.
PE or
Sure,
in their
sure.
band elective.
Yeah.
So you don't always have
Yeah.
all of them at the same time.
Yeah, no, right,
Yeah.
okay. And then. What I did hear. In your presentation. In all of this work that's been done. BCS and 6th graders cannot be on the block campus together.
I think it'd be pretty difficult to do that.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. Could you go to 1A through 1C again?
Sure.
Since you're asking for direction, I will just state my opinions on these. I think we could probably rule out option 1C from my perspective because it's for 520 students. And if you're also adding 176 graders, you're really not changing the total number of students on each campus and it wouldn't improve the traffic situation. So I'd really only look at 1A and 1B. And of the two, I'm much more interested in 1A because the additional 350 students would already accommodate all of the in-district students. And so that's my chief focus. And I just wanted to clarify that the grade levels down there, it's not like we're committed to those grade levels, like that's still subject to change, am I right?
Yes. If we did it as an exercise to look at it's gonna be grades 1 through 8, but it could be any combination.
Any further?
I have a couple of comments. I just wanted to sort of reinforce with the block campus and the floodplain issue. I mean, you made a comment about that, but for those of you who sort of can't picture it, and I'm not going to describe it very well, but basically the floodplain maps changed shortly before the most recent portables were put onto the block campus, and the current official floodplain kind of just flows through the middle of the campus.
Correct.
So if we couldn't build the current BCS facilities at block now without raising them all 3 or 4 feet off the ground because DSA wouldn't let us. In fact, when the previous board made the decision to add the most recent portables, they didn't even know when they made that decision that the 4 feet of concrete would be required. Otherwise, they might not have done that at the time. So I just want to expand a little bit on your comment about why it's very difficult to add 6th grade without moving some of the BCS, because we would have to build like a 4-foot plinth in the middle of the blacktop to add 6 classrooms somewhere else.
Right, and there's really not a lot of the outdoor space has already been hampered and shrunken. Like you can see, there's just not a lot of extra places to build. And it would be very expensive, as you mentioned, to build seriously high concrete foundations, or it's just really not necessary. One of the goals on the previous slides was cost effective. I think it would probably be the least cost effective thing to do at that site.
The other comment I was gonna make about block is that, so prior to BCS expanding to their current footprint, there was childcare. It was a childcare facility on block, I think, somewhere in that footprint. So I think it might just be worth exploring to see if the 2 sort of northernmost portables that are also on the high concrete foundation up towards, yeah, it was there.
Right, basically.
Yeah, up the ones, those guys,
Yeah, right.
just to sort of see if there's a childcare organization that might be interested in taking those over in a way that didn't continue to cost us money, just because presumably demolition of that 4-foot high plinth is gonna take some money as well, so.
Yeah, and we did kind of already do some initial thoughts, and is maybe if we didn't demolish it, it could be like a raised outdoor lunch area with like, you know, put
Okay.
railings up around it and umbrellas, and we're thinking already about stuff like that,
Sure,
right?
sure.
I would
Okay.
say, yeah, because you've already put all that money in the concrete, and you can keep all the utilities and things there, but I think that's just one thing we've been looking at.
Sure, okay, appreciate that. I just wanted to sort of call that out. since,
I
I
think
know, at the time, there were people who were sad
Right.
to lose the childcare facility there. So I just wanted to highlight on their behalf, the question of whether it would be possible to add that back. I also just wanted to comment on sort of the questions about cost effectiveness. I want to say personally that I take very seriously the notion or the fact that BCS families who live in LASD are my constituents as well. And also that BCS are public school students and entitled to essentially a share of the facilities bond that we just passed, $350 million. So it's a question of how do we invest that money that will benefit BCS students in as cost-effective as possible way? And as somebody who's been involved with this issue for, I don't know, 12, 15 years, I have actually yet to see a proposal that's more cost-effective than developing the San Antonio campus and then moving everybody seamlessly. I want people to not underestimate the disruption, even if we had the money, the disruption that would be entailed in trying to build sort of a brand new campus, say at Egan, on top of where the Egan students currently are. But the reason why these facilities exist at Block and Egan in the first place is because 25 years ago, the district redeveloped all of our elementary schools from scratch. And so they moved all the kids for a year to get that done. We don't have, in my opinion, anywhere other than San Antonio campus as sort of a place that we can either develop or place kids while the work is done. So I encourage, if anybody's interested in having a longer conversation, I encourage you to reach out. I can give you a lot of history. I've seen proposals of, you know, what would it take to provide permanent facilities for both BCS and Egan on the Egan campus or on the Covington campus or on the Block campus. And it doesn't get cheaper than what we're currently planning to do. I know the people have various issues with it, but I don't think cost in the end is the real sort of issue in the longer run.
I'd like to take issue with something Brian said. About BCS students being LASD students.
Sorry, I didn't say LASD, I said public school students.
I'd like to take issue with that as well. I don't know what the right number is. But if BCS disappeared overnight, a significant number of BCS students would go to private schools. So those kids are not really public school students. We are supporting them because we take money. That's from money. That's my, I mean, technically they are, but in reality, they're not. BCS is a publicly funded private school. I also like Jim. I had a question about both campuses requiring 6 more portables. And yet the numbers at Egan were larger. Number of students that even increase was larger than that lot. So if it works out, that's fine. That was something that stuck in my mind. The last thing is, since I'm taking issue with things, I'm taking issue with Pepe, who said that most kids are ready for 6th grade. You have no evidence of that. It's a sample size of 1 or perhaps 10, 15 or 20. But the only way really to establish that is to establish what ready means and also to do a survey of kids at the time. So I personally believe that it's probably a better educational experience for kids to be in middle school model. But so far, I have not seen any evidence that that is true. I guess that's it. To take an issue with an previous.
I think to put a fine point on what you were saying, yes, BCS is publicly funded, but they're privately governed. Whereas we are publicly funded and publicly governed, how I think about it. Did you have any other?
Go ahead, I have one other. I just wanted to. I'm not gonna, I have a lot of issues, but I was just going to. Second what Stella said, and I have a question about the 1A through C model, the scenarios. I agree, I'm really only interested in option 1A or 1B, but I'm really only interested in option 1A. But I do have a question. The out-of-district students, I mean, they are allowed to enroll out-of-district students according to their charter up to a certain number. So, I mean, I know they've exceeded that number, but, I guess my question is, 1A and 1B would still satisfy what they're allowed to enroll, right?
The current agreement is a cap of 1,100 students. They're right at that cap. But their in-district students is 900. And we're legally, we're only required to provide facilities for in-district students. So if there is a change in the agreement, as we're negotiating this process, we're really legally only required to provide facilities for in-district students, which would be really, 300 kids at one of the campuses and 600 at San Antonio campus.
But I mean, that's this year, right? Like that
Correct.
number, the number of industry students changes, has the potential to change,
Yes.
right? So that obligation has the potential to go up. In theory.
Okay.
But it's also true, if you exceed the number that we agreed.
It's the negotiated agreement.
We put a clause in the agreement that said that if they didn't maintain a certain level percentage of in-district students, then we had the option to opt out, to terminate the agreement, or which at this point is moved since we're down to the last.
Yes, I have a follow-up comment. I suspect though that the number of in-district students is unlikely to increase dramatically because overall statewide, we're seeing declining enrollment. And so I would be surprised if they were an exception to that. Do you know what I mean? If we're talking about in-district students,
Well,
overall, the number of
I mean, I'd have to look.
children is declining.
Sure, well, I'd have to look at the numbers again. So their out of district increase. My memory is mostly in the upper grades.
That's
Because at least half of their fifth graders don't graduate from eighth grade at BCS. In theory, if they were able to fix that and retain more of their students, then it could grow, right?
Yeah.
But they could also, I keep hoping that BCS will deal with us collaboratively and sort of help determine what the right number is for both of us, right? Because they got to 1111 by growing without consulting us and sometimes even over the objections of their current families. So this is a slight tangent from the point you were making. So I agree with you, but I'm sort of hoping that we will be able to come to we and the BCS board will be able to come to some sort of arrangement that makes sense for both of us, right? That determines what the right number is based on a holistic look, taking into account the things that Eric has pointed out about how much out of district students cost the district.
Well, we do have another meeting, negotiating meeting with Sal and I with the BOAS team. And I do think that we can get to some sort of negotiation. We've always gotten to some sort of negotiated agreement. I think. So I personally, when I've been talking to parents, I've gotten a lot of pushback as to why we, LASD, haven't pushed back on the fact that BCS is enrolled. Their percentage of out-of-district students exceeds what was in the agreement. And I take your point that we're in the last year get that. I think for me, option 1A is probably the only one that makes sense to me. I mean, Eric, if we, like, I know it's always cheaper to like, you know, to all move portables around, when we're doing like construction, like. But let's say we go with option 1A and, you know, another negotiated agreement 5 years from now allows BCS to grow. Would it be that much more expensive to plot more portables to get to option 1B, for example?
I mean, I think some of the infrastructure and utilities are in the ground would be the cost of bringing in portables and setting them down. I think that would be the incremental cost.
I'd like to take issue with something that Sang said. We can't dictate, you know this, can't dictate grade configurations to ACS. And so they may decide to put kindergarten, well, actually, maybe not. Because
We can,
kindergarten.
right, we have to
special-
provide the facilities and the specialized spaces as part of a package, right?
But in general, we can't dictate the grade configurations. The other thing is that I agree with your suggestions for getting compensation from BCS, but I'm not sure that the law allows that. So I'm not sure that we have any leverage there.
I think up until now, we've been very, very good about finding facilities for the out of district students as well. And I take Sang's point about putting that responsibility back on BCS to house their out of district students. I think that's a very fair point. Well, you're looking for board, you're looking for board direction tonight.
I'll summarize a little bit of what I heard and then maybe want to add on. So I heard maybe look at other community benefit uses. The big spaces of that block that has the attached play area for that. I heard to understand, I think I heard to understand maybe the cost of some demolition that would need to happen, like what might those costs be if we were demolishing some of those older portables at Egan and additional ones at Block. I know on our end, we want to look more closely. I haven't been in those portables ever. I think when we figure out like which exact portables perhaps at Block or at Egan that we would want to keep, we would want to do some more detailed walkthroughs to understand what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
Yes.
think you just went where I was, because at Egan too, it sort of occurred to me, you know, that whole quad is relatively new, and I know some of the permanent spaces, like Egan on the campus has some, I think, some portable buildings, or at least some permanent buildings that might as well be portable based on how old they are, so I expect that to be, or I would hope that would be factored in as well, sort of holistically to sort of say, does it make sense to keep some of these beyond the 6 that we need for 6th grade and deprecate some of the other space?
Yeah.
I have one clarifying something.
Yeah.
On the, I think it was the initial 2 maps, the grayscale maps that you had numbers on, back there. You have numbers there. Are those, like 2010 portables, or is that 10 years old? Or is that,
Yeah, these numbers got updated last spring. They might be 1 year and behind.
what do they represent? The age?
Yes.
The
age
room
of the
number and the
room number and
age.
the age of the portable. Yeah, the type number is the room number, and then the handwritten number of the age. Hard to show on the map to get on one page, but thank you for, but in the packet, it's probably a little bit easier to see in the packet.
I'm sorry, Sandra, I interrupted or something.
That, I'm good.
Okay.
If you have other. If you have other.
Is there any other questions that you need direction on? As you move forward?
I think what we'll try to do is in the next meeting in March or April, we'll bring something back to you and give you some cost numbers and some options and cost numbers.
And look more holistically, I think.
Yeah.
the 6A Egan campus, a 6A Block campus.
And can we see an updated timeline so that we can see where we are on the timeline? Anything else for Sandra and Eric? All right, thank you very much, Eric. Appreciate it. All right, Citizens Advisory Committee for Finance Mid-Year Report.
Here, here, she's carrying on Fred Gallagher, who head of the Operations Committee, and Fred is patient. So thanks for this, Fred.
9 o'clock, yeah, time to talk about finance. Get ready.
So Fred is here tonight for that. This is the mid-year report for CACF.
Great, since it is a little bit late, I'm gonna gallop, but I'll pause on some of the topics that might be somewhat new. So we'll cover some of the near-term and longer-term issues affecting us financially in the district. We'll look at some budget scenarios, and then we have some conclusions and recommendations. Oh boy, that's gonna be hard. All right, let me point at this. So the short term over here is our items that we've talked about for years. All right, so property tax growth is actually slowing, and it's volatile. It doesn't always match our increase in costs. The second point, enrollment has been declining, so we have fewer students that we have to spread, fixed and overhead costs over. So costs go up for that reason. As you already know, compensation accounts for about 8% of our operating budget. And there's a number of unfunded and underfunded mandates. You're all very familiar with these topics. We spent some time on CACF talking about longer term items that I want to slow down a little bit here and cover these with you. So actually, let me talk about the first two in combination. You may be familiar. In Sacramento, starting to talk about topics related to basic aid funding. And there's a concept of excess revenues associated with basic aid districts. And this is the second point. Declining enrollment could start to exacerbate that, because if you look at non-basic aid districts, enrollment is going down, so their revenue is actually declining. And so that's going to put pressure on them. And it's becoming a topic in Sacramento. All the way to point, I don't know if the Board of Trustees is familiar, there's a SB 743. Cortese is the sponsor of that, which is talking about some solutions. We can look at that in the guise of how that would affect LASD, but if we think about how it affects other districts, that also has implications. So think about it this way, is that some of the implications here would be that other districts are going to have to get more efficient. So a likely scenario is we start to see consolidation either at a district level or even start to have more unified districts. And so that will push more efficiency, across the different districts. So again, efficiency, that will be a recurring theme. And, we don't count on a lot of revenue from the state these days, but I wouldn't expect much more coming our way either. Pension and benefits, we've discussed that. We've seen a slight decline in the rate, but we're also at an all-time high with the stock market. So the STRS and PERS funds are seeing the benefit of that. I wouldn't count on that, reduction lasting very long. And then another topic we've discussed is we call it workforce availability. As you're familiar, as you know, the district has participated in some local workforce affordability projects. This is one of the concerns we had about this was that it could becoming an ongoing cost. Even if we don't participate, we're going to see other pressure because other districts around us will start to offer this, and it creates more compensation pressure for the district itself. So a ton of areas for pressure. Just wanted to highlight these. You're all familiar with any of these. So let me talk about some of our multi-year budget, and let's talk about some scenarios. Let's see if I can highlight some of them. So this is directly out of the first interim multi-year projection. A few numbers here. The one I really like is that one right there. So we ended last fiscal year over 30% in reserves. I've been on CACF for 12 years now, and we've never seen a number that high. So we are in a great position, from a reserves perspective. And then when you look at our multi-year projection over the next 3 years, we're beginning in the low 20s. Again, a great number. We haven't seen this you know, in, I don't think, 2 decades. So it's phenomenal. Numbers we have to work on are right here. Okay, so if we look over the 3 years, we're gonna burn through 9 million of reserves. And if we look at the last year, we're at 3 million, so it's almost 3 million a year. So what we're referring to as a structural deficit. And in the last 2 years, there's no plan in there for across the board raises. That's what most districts do. Probably not a realistic plan, but that's just the convention. So we discussed a few scenarios at CACF. Just to recap, what we decided to do is let's recap the plan real quick. So inside of the multi-year projection, there's an assumption of an average of 3.2% annual increase in property tax collections. We wanted to bump that up to 4 or 5, which is closer to our longer term number. And then we developed 4 scenarios, A through D. Okay, and I'll just go through these real quick. So you can't read this, so let me read it for you. Number 1 is a 3% across the board raise, 2%. This is what's in the multi-year. This is 1%, and this is no raise. So what the numbers represent is the cumulative deficit over 3 years. All right. From a reserves perspective, we can handle all these. All right. So we can handle these from a reserves perspective. What we can't do though is if we go to what the deficit is, we're just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper. So if we were to give a 3% raise based upon the MYP, everything being the same, we'd have a $5 million deficit, and no one would find that acceptable. So again, what we need to look at is some right sizing. With the reserves though, given our reserve levels, we can approach this intelligently. All right, we don't have to do anything draconian. I'm gonna skip the slide, it's late. And so here's some of the points that we've talked about at CACF. There's a number of buckets that we've looked at. The challenge for CACF to do this is we're not able to say, okay, how does this affect the program? All right, so we can point to areas where, you know, we benchmarked other districts and said, all right, here's where we're a little bit higher. You know, perhaps the district staff ought to look in these directions. But we really can't say, hey, this is going to affect, you know, we can't say how it's going to affect the program. So these percentages that we have here in each one of these are per ADA, average daily attendance. And so, you know, our inside of the comparable districts that we looked at, our classified expenses add as a category, not at the salary level, just as a gross category across ADA, we're 10% higher than the cumulative other districts. All right. There are some other measures we looked at in terms of admin costs that had facilities in it. We were higher than other districts, but we didn't put that up here because there's too many fixed costs in that. So I just would highlight there's some other costs there. Facilities was one that was noticeably higher in terms of the utilities, rentals. We just covered that inside of your discussion. And then our special ed is higher as well. So again, we're not able to really ascribe how these would affect program, but these are the areas that we're coaching district staff to take a look at. Yeah, sure.
A caddy is what?
It's gonna have, it's comparative. It's due to comparative, and the D is district.
It's basically the report from school services. It's a comparative analysis of districts' salaries and expenses. Income and expenses.
And there's a set of districts that are in the back that we highlighted. Which actually, now that you mention that. So in the appendix, there's a number, one of the things I'm gonna just go ahead and jump ahead, so it's fun. This is, you know, if you look at the decline in reserves, we're looking at about 10 points. Other districts are looking at significantly larger decreases in reserve. It just highlights the position that the district has gotten in over the last few years. And when you look at where we're gonna end up at the end of 3 years, we're, you know, near the top. We haven't been there before. So we're doing very well relative to our surrounding districts that we're similar to. We still have some work to do from a right sizing perspective. So still, again, reserves are in a great spot, not worried about that. Recommendation that we have, this was actually made at last year's end of year report from CACF. We do want to recommend a 15% reserve. Actually, after we signed off on this at the last CACF meeting, we did some more work with Eric a better number would actually be the 17 to 20%. And the reason that is that if you look at, as you know, the reserves at the end of year, all right? So we actually hit our cash point low in the October timeframe. And so having 17% at the end of the year is a good point because it carries us through to the beginning of school, and we don't have to go out, the district doesn't have to go out and borrow. And not only interest, but there's transaction fees on that. So 17 to 20 is actually a much better percent. We're in that, we could do it. So our recommendation is the board change the policy and move at least to 15%, and consider, the 17 to 20. Which is actually where, if you look at the surrounding districts, all of them are in that range as well. And then right size spending, look, the point is we have the reserves to carry us through the next 3 years. Getting out of the structural deficit so that we can, think about long-term programs. And how we're gonna really look at this for the long term. And then I think we've talked about this many times at CACF, it's not here. We receive a lot of, a tremendous amount of funding from the community itself, keeping community engagement. District has done a great job, and so just continue that point as well. So pause there. Wanted to run through that quickly, given the time. Happy to take questions and happy to take any considerations that you'd like us to work on between now and the end of the year.
Thank you, Fred. We're gonna take clarifying questions,
Sure.
public comment, and then go back to discussion.
Okay, sure.
Clarifying question? Clarifying question? All right, then, we have one for public comment, Karen?
Thank you for the presentation. That's wonderful. As you know, a lot of the school in Silicon Valley is going through budget cuts because of, the tax. And yes, structural deficit, if that's what LASD is running at, with moving moving 340 kids to like to the middle school. And then if you are gonna keep all the elementary school open, which a lot of them are in the range of like 300 kids. So then you guys have to figure out what you're gonna do with the middle school plan, moving sixth grade over, and then the enrollment decrease in the remaining elementary school. How's that gonna affect, your budget? So I hope you think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board discussion, and if you have any questions or comments for Fred, please finally lead us off.
You mentioned consolidation and efficiency, in light of possible, Senate Bill 740.
743, yeah.
Yeah. I happen to have read an article, basically I didn't agree with most of the article, but there was a link to some ideas about entering into agreements with other districts that effectively consolidate a portion of our expenses. So we don't necessarily have to consolidate districts to get some benefit of it. So there's wrong with that out there. The other thing is about enrollment. Yes, enrollment's going down, and we have a bubble in our enrollment by grade, but I think that's offset by TK numbers. Yeah, so.
It has been so far, but we have to see if that plays out, right, and continues to grow.
And our enrollment is flat, is that correct, Sandra?
It has been flat.
It's been flat for how many years?
So it's the last 3 years.
3 years, so it's been pretty
flat.
stable. As far as it's declining in other districts, it's been fairly stable.
You're already done with your comment?
Oh, yes, sure, sorry.
Okay. Well, Fred, thank you so much for that presentation and for your many years of service on CACF. I was particularly grateful for your comments on the reserves policy. And also I really liked your slide that highlighted sort of like 3 areas of the district could look further at. And, you know, it concerned me that we're spending 55% more on utilities, and I hope that a lot of the modernization upgrades will help address some of those.
I just, a couple of comments. One, I mean, I take the point about we have a lot fewer students, but I encourage anybody who has the top of mind question, why don't you guys just close a couple of elementary schools, to go look in detail at the process for the districts around us that are doing that, and how painful that is for those communities, and how much pushback it is. We are in a fortunate position of being able to maintain 7 elementary schools, even though we have a lot fewer kids. And we're doing that because our constituents demand it of us, quite frankly. Given that we can afford it, this is what our community wants. That might change at some point in the future. Either we might fail to continue to afford it, or our community might change its mind, but I don't see that either one of those things, fortunately, happening soon. I just wanted to sort of add on to what you're saying about reserve levels, because I think I'm worried about the sort of excess property tax message that's out there, in particular, because there's also a push at the state level for state funded districts to change the way that they're funded from ADA, actual attendance, to enrollment. But for that to happen, if you just sort of do that with the same pot of money, then it's a little bit meaningless. Like, some districts get more, some districts get less. So all of the actual schemes that I've seen, I think I just saw an article today that said, if you're going to do a hold harmless, where the shift doesn't cut anybody's budget, you have to come up with an additional $3 billion. And so I think it's entirely plausible that sort of the excess property taxes from basic aid districts become a potential source for that $3 billion. So I think that's a reason to increase. And also, for anybody who's not aware, our current reserve target is 8 to 10%. So I see that as a reason to increase the reserve target. I see potential recession is always the reason. And having gotten out of we need to borrow money every year just to keep the lights on, I think that's a reason to increase the target. And then the change that created this enormous wave of sexual abuse lawsuits across the state. We are fortunate enough not to have had to deal with that. Hopefully we never will. But even districts that aren't getting sued are seeing their insurance rates skyrocket. So I think that's another reason that, given that we have reserves to create a glide path, I would also be in favor of taking official board action to sort of say, okay, like, what should that glide path, whether it's 12% or 15% or 12 to 15% or 17%, I think that would be a good question, but I think this is the moment to make that shift.
And I have a question. So you had mentioned after CACF agreed to 15%, and then you've done some work with Eric. 17 to 20 seems more realistic. So I'm just wondering, is that, like, one of the advantages of that reserve is we're not borrowing money. So is that 17 to 20 going to keep us in that area? Or does it need to be 22%? Just as we're thinking about doing it, I'm just wondering what that realistic.
You know, one of the things we've been talking with at the board, and also some of your board packets on the budget narrative, is about cash flow. And, you know, the average payroll is $5 or $6 million plus other expenses. You're gonna need $20 million plus to make it from that July till the first property tax apportionment. And so to not borrow, you have to have the reserves to not have to do outside of borrowing. It helps our bond rating, which saves our taxpayers money. So when I say how much reserves, I could always say you can never have enough.
Of course not. Yeah, I know, but
I think it's also good to have a sliding scale, because we don't want to be so constrained that 15 is the target and then you have to make cuts to get to 15. I think having flexibility in a window is a better place to be. In most districts you see, they have some sort of sliding window.
But is their updated recommendation of 17 to 20 sufficient
For our cash flow.
for our cash flow?
Yeah.
For payroll.
Yeah, if we can do interfund borrowing, which we've done, which we have the ability to do, so we can borrow from other funds. as long as we have enough in those other funds to meet the payroll, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At this time, what our payroll is now, but as our expenses go up, yeah,
Yeah, the 17% goes up. too.
correct.
Okay.
Oh, well, I just wanted to echo Brian's request. I would also like to see this come back to us.
Yes.
Yeah, at a future board meeting.
Yeah.
So I'm very pleased to hear that board members are interested in raising the reserve, because that's something that I've been advocating for years now. So
The work is done.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Thank you, Fred.
You got it. Great. All right.
Lot of food for thought. Maybe.
Okay, like the wind.
Alrighty, move on to resolution number 25/26-11, certification of election results.
Sure. Tonight, we're excited to ask the board to certify the Measure EE election that was held November 5th of 2024. And the reason why we held off on certifying the election, because once you certify the election, you have 60 days to create a citizens oversight committee. And we haven't issued bonds. One of our later items tonight will be talking about authorizing the issuance of Series A bonds for Measure EE. But once you certify the election, your clock starts ticking, and there would have been no oversight because there would have been no funds to oversee. So we have a great bond oversight committee that's overseeing Measure N, and they would, as we'll get to the next item, but tonight is an action item. We'll have to have this officially entered into the minutes. Then we'll file it with the county, and this election will be certified, and then our clock to start the window to the Citizens Oversight Committee will start, and that will be actually the next resolution item. So tonight we're asking you to approve Resolution 25/26-11 to certify the 2024 Measure EE election.
Any clarifying questions? Thanks, Eric. Any requests for public comment? Any further board discussion? Okay, well, let's take a vote. They may have a motion to approve resolution number 25/26-11, certification of election results.
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stella. Is there any further board discussion? All right, motion to approve resolution 25/26-11, certification of election results was made by Vladimir, seconded by Stella. As this is a resolution, we'll take a roll call vote. Vladimir?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes. I know, it's just late.
Stella?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I too vote yes, motion passes unanimously. Thanks, everyone. Resolution number 25/26-12, adopting bylaws for Citizens Oversight Committee.
Sure, so tonight we're asking the board to amend the current bylaws and to allow our current bond oversight committee to oversee Measure N and Measure EE, which is allowable. And it's pursuant to state law that the oversight committee will oversee all expenditures to make sure they're spent as approved by the voters. On projects, the resolution has to be amended and restated, which we're asking you to do tonight. The attached resolution is there with the bylaws that are amended to include Measure EE, and this is an action item. And we're asking to approve resolution 25/26-12 to amend the bylaws for the Citizens Oversight Committee.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? No. Okay, is there any public comment? Public comment closed. Any further board discussion? All right, in that case, we may have a motion to approve resolution number 25/26-12, adopting bylaws for Citizens Oversight Committee.
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. I have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Stella. Any further board discussion? Okay, then motion to approve resolution number 25/26-12, adopting bylaws for Citizens Oversight Committee was made by Vladimir, seconded by Stella. Brian?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
Stella?
Yeah.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And I am mixing up
Yeah, I'm
the
gonna shake it
order.
up.
It's just so I don't tell you Steve again. Sorry. Resolution number 25/26/13, authorizing the issuance of Series A bonds.
Just a very short presentation tonight. And just to remind that this is our history of really bond authorization. We've always had very strong voter support in our community. And I'll try to go through this before, we've updated a couple of things, but the board has seen these slides before. In 2023, Measure H, really 1998. And the final maturity is when the bonds were paid off. But you can see that over the last couple of years, Measure N has been all completely issued. And then tonight, we're asking you to approve Measure E, the first Series A. All bonds from the 1990 Measure H and 2014, they've all been issued. Measure H has been all paid off. And then for tonight, we're asking you to do Series A. So really quickly, the bond analysis. During our initial financing plan, our first issuance was going to hopefully be last year, and we're just pushed it out next year. So not a huge change. These numbers are, I think, optimistic and not as conservative, but also I think looking at what we think the borrowing rate will be, we're very close to that. What we think the borrowing rate will be about 4.85 roughly. And we were at that time estimating, really this is about a year and a half ago, 4.75. And the assessed valuation, sometimes between 3.5 and 4% is what you want to estimate for AV growth. And we're above that. So we're looking really good. Our four series of bonds, you cannot issue them all at the same time. One, there's some expectations of to spend 85% of it within the first 3 years. So you can see in the golden highlighted is that's where we're at for our financing plan for Measure EE. If you look at our tax rates, we have to stay for a Prop 39 bond. We have to stay $130 per 100,000 of AV. And so you can see at the very beginning of this bond program, the first series is the first one out the gate. We're going to get right at that targeted rate and try to stay there. That allows us to push get the first principal paid off, which does save the taxpayers money. We also set last year, we set our tax rates a little bit higher than normal. So when we do this series, we'll be able to pay off a higher principal at the beginning. It's just like when you borrow money for your house, or you're buying a car, it's almost like putting a bigger down payment down. That does save you some interest over the full maturity of the bonds. And you can see the first series, it's really moved. It was going to be series 2025, and we're going to move that to this spring 2026.
Eric?
Yes.
Given how this is structured, does the fact that we're doing it in 2026 instead of 2025 inherently mean that the following series will also be a year later than originally?
We can get the money when we need it. And so what we would do is we can get it earlier if we need it earlier, or we can push it out a little bit longer if we need to. And we would only seek the second series of funds when needed. So we'll be looking at our bond program, and when we come back with a project list, the potential schedule, we'll update this as needed.
Well, but we have to, I mean, looking at this diagram, right? Like if our initial borrowing is at that $30 limit, then, I mean, I took this to mean that basically you have to get 2 years in before you can issue a new chunk of bonds, because you need you need to be able to fit all of the issuances in the $30 per 100,000.
That's correct for this bond measure. Okay. You can get the money a little bit earlier, some statutory bonding capacity issues. But we'd have to wait a lot longer between the Series C, this third series. So we can still get the funds, pretty much what we need.
So it doesn't have to look exactly like this,
no,
but it'll look sort of like this.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, and one of the things is the more money you get sooner, you have to wait longer to get the third tranche and the fourth tranche. It just makes you wait longer. Some initial authorization of the issuance of bonds is a resolution that you have before you tonight. Is a not to exceed par amount of 95 million. It's going to structure traditional current interest bonds. It's going to be a not to exceed underwriter discount of $3 per bond. It also gives you a preliminary official statement and bond purchase agreements. These are the forms that have been reviewed by bond counsel. It's not the actual preliminary official statement and the agreement, but it's what the form will look like. And then as we get closer to selling the bonds, the superintendent and myself have authority to finalize those documents. Good faith estimates, these are the good faith estimates of Series A. So there'll be 4 series. The first series is considered Series A, then B, C, and D. The financing cost, sometimes called the cost of issuance, is about $525,000. The building fund deposit would be 94 million, and then the total repayment will be 211 million. And this is always, there's refunding options. So when we go 10 years out, some of the bonds can be called back, and there'll be a callable option in usually 8 to 10 years. And sometimes you could refinance at a lower interest rate. And so the repayment right now is roughly 2-to-1 repayment issue, which is pretty common. But this is just an initial estimate, and it's not the final number that we'll see. The issuance schedule is right off. It's tonight. We're asking for board approval. We'll have a rating agency meeting in March 2nd and receive the rating. We did receive an upgrade last time. We did a bond sale when we paid off the bond anticipation note. One of the things that Fred, I always pointed out, it's very good to have strong finances and high reserves, because that allows you to get a better bond rating. You know, we want to keep that. The higher rating we have is the greater savings to taxpayers. Just like you have a FICO score, it's like the district's FICO score. We have our preliminary official statement will be in March. We'll price bonds in near the end of March in the closing. There's a lot of school districts that are going to be going out for refinancing of bonds that they sold in 2016. And so we want to get a hold of that. Many investors, once their portfolio is full, they won't want to be interested in their bonds. So we're going to try to get ahead of the market a little bit. And we think that the interest rate environment right now is a good place to be. Some regulatory disclosures, obviously, are some of your packet information, but I like showing this. And this is an interesting slide, and I'm not going to go much past this one, but if you look at this, the assessed values are often significantly below the market value due to Prop 13. If you look at our community, if the average home is $4 million, there's like 80% of the properties in our district are below the market value. So there's a great opportunity for growth as homes get changed over, that we'll get increased property tax and AV growth. And so there's a big upside in our community and the homes. And then the people paying taxes, some of our people who have been in their homes for a long time, they're paying low assessed values. So that it's not going to impact them as much. Yes, everyone has to pay taxes. But for our older citizens who've been here for a lot longer, their tax rates will be lower because they've been in their homes longer. They're at a lower assessed value. So we're mindful of those things in our community. But if you look at our community, only 10% of the homes are over 5 million. And so, you know, they're going to be paying taxes, but it's only 10% of our total property. So this is such a nice slide to show that there is a big upside in our community for assessed values and growth. And property tax growth also helps our general fund, which we always are highlighting. So those are just some highlights. This is the action item. So tonight we're asking you to approve resolution 2526-13. It allows the district to issue the first issuance for a series of bonds for Measure EE. And they'll be issued as current interest bonds throughout negotiated sale for the purpose of funding voter approved projects. And this is an action item for you tonight. It's very exciting. Measure E, this is the first series, and so we're really excited to let's start the program.
Great. Thank you, Eric. You want to clarify questions for Eric? Is there any public comment? No? Public comment is now closed. Any further board discussion? Alrighty. Then may I have a motion to approve resolution number 25/26-13, authorizing the issuance of Series A bonds.
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stella. Is there further board discussion? Okay. Motion to approve resolution number 25/26-13, authorizing the issuance of Series A bonds was made by Vladimir and seconded by Stella. Stella?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
I too vote yes, motion passes unanimously. Thanks, everyone. And we pulled item 8. So, our number 9, board policy updates for review and
Yep, so tonight you have an unusual, we have 6 new updates to board policies. We are doing these in one read tonight, which is not our typical practice. These are required to be approved by the board before March 1st or by March 1st, and we only have one meeting in the month of February. I believe all of these, Carrie, you can correct me, all of these have to do with our comprehensive school safety plan. So updates to the response to immigration enforcement, records, all of those things, because our comprehensive school safety plans will be approved by the site by March 1st, and then they'll come to you after that time. So these are kind of all a big package. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? No? Any public comment? Public comment is now closed. Any further board discussion? But
So I wanted to comment on, board policy, this administrative regulation of 4050. The school site safety plan. And the comment I have is, I think there's something that hasn't been discussed. And I don't know whether it's going to appear in the comprehensive school safety plan or the 10th site. And that has to do with the fact that there's an 8-level garage behind it. And the issue is what happens if there's an active shooter there. I know that the
So Vladimir, with all school safety plans, we work in coordination with our local law enforcement. So when that school is finally occupied and they are developing their school safety plan, we would work closely with local law enforcement.
Okay, so this is a personal opinion. I don't think that's enough. Because the time between when you make a phone call to local police about an active shooter and the time the police show up and get to the floor that the shooter is at might be 15 minutes or something. I don't know, but I don't know what kind of response they give. Anyway, so that's will be part of the comprehensive school safety plan.
can I just comment on that quickly? Because I do recall that we had talked about this when we were just designing the 10th site, deciding where do we put the campus, where do we put the fields. And I remember having a conversation about this.
Yes, we did have a conversation about it.
And
it was
throughout
it
the
was-
country, any campus is susceptible to an active shooter, which is why we do a yearly training with our staff. We have an incredibly strong relationship with our local law enforcement to be sure that they are well trained and we are well trained to respond regardless of what the situation or where that threat may be coming from.
I understand. The 10th site is unique in that there's this 8-level garage.
But I mean, are you suggesting that, sorry, I first of all, I don't believe this is germane to the topic in front of us.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to make sure that the discussion of that is in the 10th site comprehensive school safety plan.
Okay. Sounds like it will be.
Active shooters is in all of our school sites. And I get your point about I know, I do get your point about that. But, you know, to Sandra's point.
But
It can
we
happen.
also don't have a school there, so we can't develop a comprehensive site plan for it.
You're
yet.
saying when we do.
Well, yeah, when we do, obviously, well,
By
I
that
mean,
time, it'd be too late.
If you're suggesting that schools are not safe located next to tall buildings, then we've got a lot of school sites to. What you know.
Maybe we should limit that to garages. That to look down on.
Now I think you're basically speculating based on a different agenda, so. And it's almost 10 o'clock, so I would like to wrap this meeting up.
Anything further? Alrighty. Oh, this is an action.
Yes.
Sorry.
Like, did we vote? I got, yeah.
Is there any public comment on this? Public comment is now closed. Any further board discussion? No, alrighty. Okay, then may I have a motion to approve board policy updates?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stella. Any further board discussion? Okay. Motion to approve these board policy updates was made by Brian, seconded by Stella. Jim?
Yes.
Vladimir?
No,
Stella?
Yes.
Brian?
Yeah.
I vote yes, with 4 yeses and 1 no, the motion passes. Board policy deletion.
Yes, so you just approved the change to response to immigration enforcement, new board policy. This is deleting the old board policy. And you please take action tonight.
Any clarifying questions for Smith? Any public comment? The public comment is now closed. Any further board discussion? No? Okay, then we have a motion to approve the board policy deletion.
so moved. Let Brian do it.
I guess Brian. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stella. Any further board discussion? Motion to approve the board policy deletion was made by Brian, seconded by Stella. Stella?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yep,
Jim?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Board and administration comments. Nothing for you, Eric? Andrew? Oh. Let's start with you, Brian.
Nope.
Stella?
Yes, I completed my second master's in government training and I got there. And I also really enjoyed both the welcome and farewell events that we had with Lincoln Junior High. And so thank you, Carrie and Catherine, also for arranging all of that. And I also wanted to just comment generally that even after we adopt a board policy, we can always bring it back and revise it. We do it all the time, so it's not gonna be too late for anything.
Vladimir?
I also enjoyed the Taiwan visit junior high, getting to meet the people from there, so that was great.
It's very lovely that we renewed our sister city
Yeah.
agreement. That was a really fun day. And then just for myself, just a reminder, challenge team is this Thursday. Buy your tickets for the legislative brunch. It's a really well-attended event. It's in March. I attended the African American Regional Educational Alliance's Professional Development Summit about addressing challenges in equity in education and
short name, names.
area PDS. Anyway, it was, I just want to point out, it was fully paid for by the Equity in Education project that I'm doing. Oh, that's it. And with that, adjourned.